We got Alex Hernandez back here on the program. He's going to be taking on Thiago Moises at UFC Vegas 20 on February 27th. Alex, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Doing real well. It's cold over here.
I was going to say, a lot different than Texas this time of year, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely chilly. We're getting like negative temperature readings this weekend. So
it's like a Rocky camp, which is, good. That's sort of one of the reasons you're out there, right? To get the really adequate training. And
1,000%, dude. It's the only edge the Russians had on me. So I'm happy to take it back, get in the elements.
Well, speaking of your team, how cool is it to see one of the guys I know you train with a lot, Devontae Smith, get that big win on the weekend? I know he had the injury and the layoff. I know he's a guy you're in the gym with all the time. How cool is it to see him get that win?
Man, it's awesome. And he's a real cool-headed guy, and I think it definitely showed in his fight. He brings it in practice, but he of course holds back that power. We call him Mr. Big Bink, with a 1-2, and he knows he's got it, but he does a good job of reserving himself, keeping a good attitude. When things don't go his way, he's fine, and then he goes in there totally composed, and then he lets out all that fury and all that power he knows he's been holding up all camp. And gets the job done, and does so in a brilliant way, blending strikes from legs to head, and then showing diversity in his game. So I think he did great on a number of levels. Yeah, I really loved how he composed himself and his mindset going into that fight and performing, especially given off his adversity. So yeah, great job to that guy.
And I'm sure it sets sort of a pace for the gym. Your fight's coming up here soon on the 27th, so you're in the same division. It's cool, and I actually really like this matchup. Thiago's a guy I've been following for a while. He fought in RFA. He was on the Contender Series. Were you familiar with him when you got the matchup? Were you aware of him?
Oh yeah, man. We've been kind of side by side for a long time. I remember he was an LFA champ at the same time that I was climbing LFA. And then he got beat by Robert Watley, who I was planning on fighting shortly before getting that call. And then, storming the UFC shortly after he gets into it. And I think we shared the last 3 cards together.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 or 3, But he's a guy I've seen quite a bit of. And a guy, it's funny, my last fight I was thinking, man, we were in the back together, and I was like, I'd tear that guy up. It's probably Bobby Green's probably going to get him, and then he beat Bobby, and so here we are. Yeah. I really like the match.
Did you? I'm assuming you watched the Green fight, or I don't know if you leave that up to your coaches, but some people felt like Green should have won that fight. What was your take on that matchup? Did you have a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I did, and it's funny. I actually, I almost didn't overanalyze it like that. I'm trying to recall it because like you said, I kind of learned to not oversaturate myself in the opponent. I kind of just see the things I need to see, and then I get out, almost like my coach related it to like basketball. You're not watching the whole opponent's games or the opposing team's games. You just see the bits you need to see. And so I do remember watching that fight though, and I remember thinking Bobby looked off. I thought Bobby looked a little less impressive than usual, and so he might have made Thiago honestly look a little better than maybe he deserved that fight. And I do think he probably got the win, Thiago. Mm-hmm. But it was incredibly unimpressive to me.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. And then style-wise, we know what he's good at. His striking's improved, but he's sort of a jiu-jitsu guy. That's sort of what he came from. Is that how you look at this fight, as kind of a guy that's, jiu-jitsu base, evolved sort of as striking as wrestling? Is that kind of how you look at this?
Yeah, for sure. Of course that is exactly what it is, right? Jiu-jitsu base, who's evolved other things, which isn't to put him in a box, not to say that he likes to trade. He likes to, he doesn't want to be considered a jiu-jitsu guy. He wants to be considered an exciting fighter. And so he definitely going to bring a striking mind to the fight and want to implement some of that striking game. But just like anybody else, he's got a puncher's chance, and you don't want to get hit square in the face by anyone in the UFC. And so we'll look to avoid that. But I plan on dismantling him on the feet, rocking him. And if I don't put him away, then he'll react desperately, and that's when he'll extend himself, in his grappling or with his strikes, and then I'll smash him on the ground or on the feet. I'm not really there's nowhere that I'm afraid to go into I'm not going to over respect his jiu-jitsu by any sense. You know, I'm prepared to meet him on the ground.
Now, training camp, I mentioned Devontae there. I know he's back home now in Cleveland, obviously enjoying some time off, so you're not getting to work with him. So who's in the gym with you right now as far as training partners? Is Yusuf back in there, or did he take some time off as well?
He's resting this week, but that's a guy, you know, where I'm always working with, and there's so much diversity in the guys we got in that gym. You know, Devontae is not a guy who would emulate Thiago at all.
That's true. Yeah, he's not a jiu-jitsu guy per se, right? So
but somebody, you know, I get the work I need. If I can outmaneuver Devontae's hands and learn from him and capitalize, then I'm far less fearful of Thiago's. And by the same token, he's a crispier striker. So I also want those wild hands too. And I do have some looping swingers, you know, more like Luigi Vendramini, and we have Mota, who just came over. And those are really, I mean, those are our two UFC Brazilian guys that are in there that do a good job of emulating that striking. And there's a host of bodies that guys don't even know yet that are regionally UFC level. You know, They're on the region scene, but when UFC guys come in to train with us or they're checking out the gym, they get smoked in sparring. And so I've got a whole ton of guys from 125 up to 170, even teeter with some 185ers that I like to work with. You know, just different styles. And again, at the gym, we kind of work on developing our blend our MMA IQ. And so whenever I'm standing across from anybody, not overthinking their game, but just kind of knowing how to break them down, align myself, and then emulate or implement my game rather, you know. And so I'm not planning on Thiago doing anything. I'm just blank slate, prepared for whatever he wants to do, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, about kind of the IQ and the mental side of things, because you're a fight fan. I mean, I know that's kind of a basic term, but like you can tell, like you enjoy watching the fights, you study them. This is something we've talked about in past interviews. With a mind like Mark Montoya, how much has that elevated that part of the game for you from a mental standpoint of just, you know, seeing opponents or, you know, mentality going into a fight? How much has that elevated your game?
Night and day. You know, just having an experienced MMA general, a guy who really prides himself in the blend. And then, of course, having the team between him on the feet and then, of course, an overall MMA blend in IQ. Joe Warren in the in-between with his entries into wrestling, which is obviously something that I'm proficient at. And then having Jason Yarrington on the ground, it's like the nastiest trifecta I could ever hope to have. So my IQ, though, as an MMA fighter, skyrocketed because I developed a lot of these individual skills back home in San Antonio. But I was working you know, almost futilely to try to blend them on my own. And if you look at my prior fights, you know, I might be boxing, I might be kickboxing, I might be wrestling, but it wasn't as crispy as it was in my last performance. And so that's something, my analysis of myself, the game, and my opponents just completely different.
Very cool. Weight cut, how's that going ahead of this fight?
Man, it's funny. I started using Perfecting Athletes, and they just changed the game.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, Paulina, they do a great job.
Yeah, and you know, I'll always do a good job of managing my weight, but you know, I've tried so many different diet styles, and it's like, looking back at my performances, it's shown in a lot of ways where like I'll crash or gas out because maybe I was getting down in weight really easily, and what I thought was eating a balanced diet, but maybe my timing was off or I was neglecting carbs or something, and so you see these fights where I'm just completely energy dumping, and so that was another awesome adjustment to my last camp.
Very cool. Your corner, I imagine Mark Montoya. Who else will be in with you that night?
It's going to be the same as last time. It's going to be Mark, Mario Correa, and Jason Yarrington.
Very cool. And how's this fight unfolding? You kind of talked a little bit about it there, but how do you see the fight unfolding on February 27th? Yeah,
I mean, exactly what I said. You know, I think we'll go out and we'll exchange on the feet, and I think I think, you know, naively so, he might be underestimating maybe me on the feet, and I think we'll have you know, a good exchange, and I think I'll present something completely foreign to him, and I think I'll catch him, and I think I'll hurt him, and then I'll meet his desperation with clarity, and I'll I'll capitalize on the feet or the ground. If he decides to shoot or try to enter in a grappling exchange desperately, I'll meet him there, and if not, we'll finish it on the feet. But I think just that mental game is what you're going to see unfold.
A win here, I mean, this, that would be back-to-back fights. Where do you see that putting you in the grand scheme of things? And I imagine you just want to keep the momentum going if you do get a win here.
That's 1,000% it. Keep the momentum going, keep the ball rolling, because just from some adjusted perspectives and just some great insight and coaching, I'm in a great mental place. I'm approaching the game differently than I did before. I sound different. I act different. I fight different. And the way you do one thing is the way you do all things, come to find out. So I got my last win. I want to get this win. And I want to keep climbing that ladder. Riddell's a guy who keeps talking, put my name in his mouth. So, that guy or a guy around that tier, be that guy, hit the top 15, be one of those guys, top 10, top 5, and then we're making another shot. Just before I was on like too much of an ignorant fast track, and I wasn't nearly prepared for it. So this time I want to make sure I do it right.
Were you surprised to see Conor McGregor get knocked out?
No, I wanted him to win. I'm a huge McGregor fan, but I'm not surprised, especially once you start watching the performance, it's kind of like, okay, he went out and he came in a way that I was like, shit, he might just take Poirier out in like the first few minutes, because if there's any son of a bitch to do it, it's McGregor, just because the way he's got such this like iconic hype, and also already being in the guy's head that guys will wither to him just based on the hype alone, and then no doubt this man cracks. And so he was looking so good and had him rattled and shaken, and then he just kept going back to the well, and he's kind of become all the things that he was talking shit about on his way up, about kind of stuck in the mud and a little single dimensional. He lost his versatility. He used to do all these dynamic strikes that would be a funnel to the left hand, and then he was just going selfish, just greedily to the well with the 1-2 or the shovel 1-2, and getting longer and heavier and more extended, and Poirier just kept chipping away at him at that leg and tying it back to combos to the head. And I saw a turn in the fight, and I was like, oh shit, it's over. And then like 20 seconds later, it was. And it's also, like you said, inactivity and mindset and things like that. Poirier's a dog. He's not going to just crumble for anybody, and McGregor has been out, so he doesn't have that dog in him.
You certainly got the dog in you, man. I'm looking forward to this fight. UFC Vegas 20, February 27th. Alex, always a pleasure, man. Just remind people where they can get a hold of you on social media, and if you got any sponsors or shout-outs, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, at the Great 155, Ohana Academy Northeast, my gym back home in San Antonio, so check that out too.